To get started, I'm going to bake two 13 by 9 inch rectangle cakes and three 6-inch round cakes. Our cakes are 13 by 9, so what I'm going to do is trim them down to the size of this cake board, which is 12 by 8 inches. I'm just going to trim off the edges, which is going to give us really sharp straight lines, and we need this because this part of the cake is going to be the shoebox part of the cake. Now I'm going to brush my cakes with simple syrup to keep them moist and fill them with my chocolate buttercream. Then I'm going to stack the cakes, and when I reach the very top, I'm going to give the entire cake a crumb coat of buttercream. Once I've let the crumb coat set, I'm going to cover the entire cake in chocolate ganache, and then I'm going to let this set in the refrigerator for a couple minutes. Once the ganache on my cake has set, I'm going to knead out some black modeling chocolate. And the reason why I want to use black modeling chocolate is because this cake is going to need a lot of structure and support, and the modeling chocolate holds its shape a lot better than fondant does. So I'm just going to roll the modeling chocolate over the cake and smooth the sides and tops out with my hand and with a fondant smoother. Then I'm going to trim off the excess modeling chocolate on the bottom of the cake. I'm going to use some tan colored fondant to create some really thin strips and create a double line border on the bottom of the cake, and this is just to mimic that design that a Converse shoebox has. Then I'm going to roll out some thicker strips with my black modeling chocolate and place these on the top border of the cake, and this is going to act like the lid of the shoebox. Now it's time to move on to the shoe part of the cake. So I have my 3 round cakes here, and I've made some stencils of all the pieces of the shoe. So I made the sole, which is the bottom part of the shoe, and it's about 8 inches long, and I made a cake board out of it. So I'm just going to start stacking my cakes randomly and cutting them just to have this really bulky shoe shape that I could be able to carve into and create a nice shoe shape out of that. So I'm just going to start trimming down the pieces and then gluing them together onto the cake board with some chocolate buttercream. I know it doesn't look like much now, it just looks like a whole bunch of cakes stacked together, but that's the point. We want to get a basic bulky shape so that we can be able to carve into it. So right now I'm grabbing my stencil of the side of the shoe and I'm just trimming down to create that nice curved shape. And then I'm just going to carve as I go until I feel that it has the proper shoe shape that I want. I'm just rounding off the front of the cake to give us that nice round shape that the front of a Converse shoe has. And then I'm just trimming down the sides. Make sure before you start carving your cake that it's been in the freezer for at least an hour for best results. Once I feel I've got the shape that I wanted, I'm going to go ahead and cover the entire shoe in some chocolate ganache, and this is just going to set up and give this cake nice structural support. Once the ganache has set, I'm going to start by applying some modeling chocolate to the very top of the shoe. Then I'm going to use some white modeling chocolate and trace the tongue stencil to create the tongue of the shoe. I'm going to place my white modeling chocolate over some black modeling chocolate and combine these together so that way when you fold over the tongue, the inside is white and the outside is black, just like a real Converse shoe. Then I'm going to create the toe cap of the shoe with some more of my white modeling chocolate, and I'm going to place that right there on the very top front of the shoe. Using my stencil that I made of the side of the shoe, I'm going to trace that over some modeling chocolate and then place the sides on either side of the shoe. Then I'm going to trim off about 1/2 inch from the bottom. And I'm going to repeat that for the other side. Now I'm going to move on to the back of the shoe and trim off that extra modeling chocolate so that I have a nice 1-inch gap. Now it's time for the fun part. We're going to start painting. I'm going to start by using some black food color and just creating random splatters throughout the shoe. And then I'm going to blend that in lightly with the brush. Now I'm going to add some color to this shoe. So I'm going to cover my toe cap since I want it to stay white. I'm using a napkin and modeling chocolate so that the colors don't seep through. I'm using Wilton Color Mist Spray in blue, pink, purple, and silver. I'm also going to add a napkin to the very top of the shoe so that I don't color that part either. And I'm just going to start spraying randomly using one color at a time to create a galaxy effect. Once that's done, I'm going to let the food color dry, and then I'm going to grab some more white modeling chocolate and create a 1-inch thick strip to be the bottom rubber part of the shoe, and then I'm also going to add a thick strip in the back in between that gap. Now for the front of the shoe, there's a thicker white band that overlaps the other 2 bands around the shoe, and it meets just about the quarter of the way. So I'm going to cut that off right there to meet a quarter of the way through the shoe. With my X-Acto knife, I'm going to recreate these thin lines and a zigzag pattern that front rubber part of the shoe has. With my black modeling chocolate, I've just created some black trim around the shoe, and I'm creating that black band that the Converse shoe has in the middle of the big thick white band. Now using a stitch tool, I'm just going to recreate the stitching that a Converse shoe has throughout. Now I'm going to use some white food color and a thin paintbrush and create dots all over the cake, and also create really thin lines to make it look as if they were stars. With some more white modeling chocolate and a small piping tip that I have here, I'm cutting out some circles, and I'm going to use a wooden skewer to create some indented circles inside, and these are going to be the little circles that go on the shoe where the shoelaces enter. I made a total of 16 circles. There is 7 on each side, and there is 2 on the inner side right under the Converse logo. To create the shoelaces, I made some white modeling chocolate strips, and then I'm just going to enter this one straight across, entering one hole all the way to the other one, and then the other ones are going to be crisscross. So I'm just making a crisscross pattern and then using a wooden skewer to make the shoelaces kind of tucked inside so that it looks like it's actually coming out. Once I reach the second to last circle, I'm going to let the shoelaces drape down, and then I'm going to squeeze the very bottom so that it has that skinny part that a shoelace has. I forgot to mention that I added some dowels to my shoe box for support, so when we put this shoe on top of the cake, there's actually support so it doesn't sink into the bottom cake. So now I've added the shoe on top of the shoe box, and you can add a long wooden dowel in the middle going through both cakes for extra support. So I finished off the cake by adding the Converse logo on the side, and I added the All-Star to the back. So now the cake is complete. This was one of my harder cakes. I've never done a cake with such amount of detail, and I tried to get it as precise as a real Converse shoe. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe so you can stay tuned for my weekly videos. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.